Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Our software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. Well, I wanted to start off the video with a quick shout out to Lily and Evan. Lily and Evan watch my weather videos early every Monday and Thursday morning and learn a lot about geography and weather and how weather is influencing the world. So guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. You know, I do have some friends that don't watch this for educational purposes and instead turn on my videos to help their kids fall asleep. So I appreciate it that you guys get up and watch the videos. Okay, Lily and Evan, at your house here in Champaign, Illinois, I want to show you something kind of neat. This is a graph that shows temperature, high temperatures in red, low temperatures in blue, and precipitation in these blue bars going back to the beginning of August all the way until September the 16th. What I've highlighted here was that we spent a lot of that time with high temperatures that were well below average. But we've seen a pretty big shift in our jet stream pattern over the last few days, which has taken us well back above average in terms of our temperatures, and we saw some days in the 90s. Now, it has been very dry over that time period with really only 2 events that brought in some substantial precipitation. And that's why the last 30 days looks pretty dry across a significant part of the Corn Belt. I mean, look at the state of Illinois here. With the exception of this front that kind of stalled out here back in August, much of the state's been relatively dry. You could say the same for eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, parts of Minnesota, Indiana, and even parts of Michigan. And of course, as we get into the central states and through here, so think Kansas, Oklahoma, and parts of Missouri, it's been dry as well. Where it's been much drier than this has been out in the Pacific Northwest, where we've seen all of those forest fires. But things have changed out here because of that pattern shift. And a lot of the precipitation that you see right here in parts of Montana and western parts of the Dakotas, a lot of this has come very recently. And that's all been due to the shift over from a ridge that's been out west now to a deep trough. Now, if we look more specifically over the last 7 days, we've been talking about how the central and western states were going to be pretty wet because of that pattern shift. We can certainly see that here. A lot of locations in the Dakotas getting into Nebraska, even over to Iowa, Minnesota. We saw a lot of these areas seeing better than a ½ inch of rain with some locally higher amounts. You can kind of see that parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois getting back down here into Texas, this has been pretty dry through this area because we've been split between where that trough came through and where Hurricane Irma eventually dropped a lot of that rainfall. So kind of split up here in terms of precipitation over the last 7 days or so. Well, here's that new pattern shift that we've been talking so much about. You can see a large ridge here in the Gulf of Alaska, deep trough over the western United States, building into a ridge here across the eastern 2/3 of the country. Basically, this has introduced some significantly cooler weather and some very wet weather, while the much of the Corn Belt's been enjoying some warmer weather that has been accompanied with this ridge. Now, we'll talk about Jose and Maria in just a few moments, but you can certainly see them spinning here in the North Atlantic. So let's take this and take a look next at what it's going to do to our temperatures. Well, on Sunday, we had a pretty weak cold front move through, and that's why on Monday, we're going to see parts of the Great Lakes states experiencing some, a little bit cooler temperatures here, but the real cool weather is going to be in that trough here out over the Pacific Northwest. But watch as we move from Monday into Tuesday. You really start to see the rebounding warmer weather coming up underneath that ridge that's spreading across the east again, while the west stays really quite cool. By the time we get into Wednesday, we see a similar pattern, and Thursday we see much of the same. So this is basically going to be the pattern we're locked into until that trough out west finally moves across the country. So the question is, when is it going to do that? Well, we always look to the jet stream to figure out when that's going to happen, and here's a map animating what we call the 500 millibar height anomalies. So we're looking for troughs and ridges. As I started over again, we can see that by Wednesday the 20th, we're still digging in that broad trough over the northwest and over the north central plains into parts of the Dakotas. What we see here is that reinforces itself by the time we get into Friday, which means, gosh, if you live east of that area, it's kind of the region I'm circling here, we're going to get a whole week of above average temperatures. It doesn't appear that breaks down and starts to move across the country until we maybe get into, a week from this Monday, Tuesday. So we're talking the 26th, 27th, 28th, that time frame. We're going to be watching for that whole pattern to maybe shift such that we build a ridge back out west, maybe having some near average to cooler than average weather coming in to possibly start the month of October. But there's some uncertainty in this, and there's some longer range forecasts that suggest that we maybe hover around near average temperatures as we begin the month of October and maybe even get into middle October. So nothing right now that points to an early frost threat, especially for kind of the central Corn Belt and through this area that I'm circling in through here. Okay, in terms of precipitation, through the beginning of this week, here's what we're watching. You just kind of watch an animation of what the NAM model's projecting here in terms of what the radar's going to see. So if we just kind of slow this down and take a look at it bits and pieces. So the first thing we're going to see here is that really early in the morning on Monday, we're watching a very short wave trough moving through the flow of the jet stream. Very, very short wave that's potentially going to kick off some showers and storms, widely scattered, but some showers and storms across these central states here. And as we move forward throughout the day on Monday, we can see that those showers and storms tend to kind of move on and off to the east, a little bit to the north and east. And so we're going to see them spread across Iowa and parts of Missouri and then eventually over into Illinois. So widely scattered. This is not going to be a rain event for everybody, but we're certainly keeping an eye out on that. Over off the East Coast, we're watching Jose kind of move its way toward the northeast. We'll talk about Jose in a few moments. But one area I am getting concerned about is by the time we get into later in the day on Tuesday, so this is now the 19th, we're going to be watching the northern parts of the plains here for the potential for some strong to severe storms. And the reason for that is that as that front kind of moves into this area, watch me animate these winds, we can see here we have some strong flow out of the Gulf of Mexico meeting right here along this front. And that's basically going to cause some surface convergence, going to get the air to rise. Because there's some decent wind shear up here associated with that trough, we're on the lookout for some strong to severe storms by the time we get into Tuesday and Tuesday night. So if you're watching this video in this area, be on the lookout on Tuesday afternoon and evening for the potential for some strong and severe storms. Okay, when we look longer term, this is an animation going out for the next 10 days showing us 24-hour accumulated precipitation. Now what we see is as we get things going, really the middle of this week after those storms kind of blow up here in the north central plains, we're going to see relatively drier conditions after that first round of precip moves through. But what I want to do is I want to get you into next week. You see, as that ridge starts to migrate east and the trough digs in, we're going to be seeing these central states, the one I'm circling right in through, having a very, very wet week, I think starting this week and getting into next week. So this is the area that I'm watching, as we move toward harvest as potentially having quite a bit of precipitation. You can just see that it kind of sits over that area Sunday into Monday, into Tuesday, into Wednesday of next week. So this is the area that I'm getting concerned about being a wet start to next week. So we talked about this week's precip. This again is next week's precipitation. Okay, let's transition quickly to the tropics here. What we've got is three systems: Jose, Maria, and Lee. Now I'm going to leave Lee out of the discussion. We're going to start first with Category 1 strength Hurricane Jose. Now, model consensus kind of has Jose skirting right along the northeast coast. This will impact the northeast, but not as a powerful hurricane. We're going to see some windy conditions into this area, as you can see here by the National Hurricane Center's forecast. But it appears that Jose is going to really stay offshore, not really making a landfall here. And as it goes through this area, it's going to be interacting with some cooler water temperatures and some really strong wind shear. That's going to prevent Jose from strengthening rapidly. If you live in the Northeast and you're watching this, especially in the coastal regions, expect something more like you get out of a nor'easter, which we expect in fall, winter, and spring. So that's what we're looking at in terms of Jose. Now, Maria down here has a little bit better path moving forward, a lot less wind shear in the immediate vicinity. And as Maria moves on forward, the National Hurricane Center is expecting that by late in the day on Monday, Hurricane Maria, which is currently a Category 1 as of late in the night on Sunday, early Monday morning, we expect it to get back up to major hurricane status, which would be a Category 3 strength storm or stronger. Here is at least the model forecast for Maria. Each line represents a different forecast. The box I've enclosed here represents the strength of Maria getting above the Category 3 status. So you can see here several of the models projecting Maria to be a Cat 3, maybe even a Cat 4 or stronger hurricane. And the problem is about the time that it strengthens like this, it goes over Puerto Rico. So this could cause some major problems there. Beyond day 5, which will be when Hurricane Maria is north of the island of Hispaniola, there's considerable spread in the model runs, and there's too many players kind of working together to choose the eventual path of Maria. So we're going to have to keep a close eye out on Maria for the next 5 days so that we know once it gets here where it's going to go. Is it going to be another Florida system, or is it going to miss the United States entirely, or possibly the Northeast? The whole of the eastern United States needs to be on the lookout for Maria, potentially another powerful hurricane. So the tropics are very active. We're just halfway through the season, so we have to keep a very close eye on what's going on there. Finally, I want to wrap up by talking a little bit about South America. Showed you this map a couple of weeks ago. It shows you the percent of soil moisture kind of stored in the soil. We know that the northern growing regions up here spend their dry season very dry. But the question is how quickly does this area recover? So this was valid on September 9th. This is September 16th. We really don't see too much of a change here, which means this is a dry start to their planting season. It has been wet down here. This is Rio Grande do Sul, and Argentina's been wet as well, but very, very dry in the northern growing regions. If we look out over the next 10 days, we really don't see much precipitation moving into that area either. Looks like it's all going to be down here in the southern growing regions of Brazil and into Argentina. So we have delayed planting because of too much rain down here, and then delayed planting because it's too dry in the northern growing regions. And this certainly has an impact both on the soybean crop, which usually goes in first, and then the safrinha corn crop, which will go in second. So this is important. We're watching planting season delays in South America due to weather. Now, real quick, I want to make sure that you see the latest updates for El Nino. What we're going to expect to see here is that moving through much of South America's growing season and Northern Hemisphere winter, we're going to have some kind of INSO-neutral but possibly weak La Nina conditions. La Nina would be if we got down into this blue here. So you can see that over the coming months we stay really more toward INSO-neutral but has a La Nina bias. And why that's important is historically we can see that from some research here that La Nina tends to produce some drier conditions across much of Brazil and Argentina's growing regions. So that's going to be our concern as we watch this pattern unfold going through their planting and then their main growing season down in South America. So again, a lot of great stuff to look at here. Hope you found this information useful. We hope you look forward to our next forecast coming out on Thursday. To get morning farm report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows a snapshot of your field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for that free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield program or for growers who work with AD merchandisers. Look forward to talking to you again on Thursday.